So my goal with all of this is to put the power and the value back into not just the hands, but the minds and the hearts of creatives, where they can leverage everything. They can own everything again. We're at a pivotal point here with AI. And if we don't do something about this now, this is going to get out of our hands in a way like it never has. And I don't know if we're ever going to get it back.
All right, ladies and gents, gather round, gather round. We got value going once, truth going twice. Sold for a song. That's right, folks. Rights signed away, data given away, pennies on the play. Publishing, gone. Credit, missing. Ownership, kiss it goodbye. 50 pages of catch-22s, no dice. You can't eat a like, a follow, or a view. Sold for a song. But wait now, hold your bits, hold your breath. Here comes the truth louder than the bass line. Time to take it back, where the artists rise, the system shakes, and the silence finally breaks.
Welcome to Sold for a Song, the transformative podcast that dissects the music industry's long-standing practice of undervaluing its most essential contributors. Yes, we're talking songwriters and artists. In each episode, we'll delve into the journey of recognizing and elevating the true worth and value of music creators, discover how the industry has exploited creators, and learn actionable strategies to revolutionize this trend and take control of your career. Hello, podcast land. I'm Terrence Sawchuk, but you can call me Terry. After 30 plus years in the trenches of the music industry, trust me, I've seen it all. The highs, the heartbreaks, and the resilience it takes to succeed as a creator. Here's what I've learned. Awakening your self-worth, owning and leveraging your value, and streamlining the process to free up the time we need to do what we most love to do, which is create. That's what stands between you and the freedom we're all chasing. All right, before we dive in, if you believe in empowering artists and redefining what it means to thrive creatively, do me a favor, subscribe, leave a quick review, and share this episode with someone who truly needs it. That one click helps more than you know. And if you want to go deeper, join me at terrencesawchuk.com to be a part of the community and follow all of my endeavors for exclusive content and updates. Hello, podcast land. It's your host, Terrence Sawchuk. Call me whatever you want. I thought it was overdue that I do my first solo show and maybe give you a little bit of background on myself and the theme of the actual show and the Sold for a Song brand in general. So what I'd like to do today is basically give you a little bit of background on myself and tell you what it is that I'm actually doing here with the Sold for a Song brand, the podcast, the book I'm working on, the Sold for a Song Artist Accelerator, all kinds of fun stuff. And why am I doing all of this? I am doing all of this because I am in the position to be able to help artists and creatives at a very, let's say, pivotal time in musical history. In an era of streaming and now AI, I find that more than ever, artists are looking for solutions to kind of combat what is going on. We're in an era where I've never seen creatives leveraged this much by everyone else. And it's my thought that it should be the other way around. We should be making use of technology to basically leverage our own art instead of the other way around. So a little background on me. I am from a little pulp-and-paper town in northern Ontario, Canada called Espanola, Ontario. Music-wise, my uncle, my mother, my grandmother were all very musical. I grew up kind of a crazy summertime weekends at the cottage and everybody kind of partying and singing French folk songs and country music and all kinds of East Coast songs. I was lucky enough to grow up in an extremely musical environment. I didn't really discover music until later on. I just kind of thought everybody else was rewriting Elvis songs at 4 years old or writing their own songs at 10 years old. I didn't know what other kids were doing at home. I just thought, oh, that must be normal. So that's kind of my introduction to music. And it wasn't until I was 16, really, that I discovered music. Sat down with my best friend, Sean, and who was kind of the musician in our circle at the time, and helped me discover the piano that I had sitting in my own house for years and years and years, my grandmother's piano, which I still own to this day. And we sat down and tried writing a song, which blew my mind. And I went home and worked on it and worked on it and worked on it and brought it back to him the following week. And that was it. I was hooked. I didn't look back. I think I sat in that basement in Espanola, Ontario. From the age of 16 to 18, I counted 14 days that I physically went outside where I wasn't at school. or working some kind of part-time job, 14 actual days in your teenage years. Imagine this, 14 actual days where I went outside and did anything. If I wasn't working or wasn't in school, I was on the piano writing songs from age 16 to 18. So then I kind of had the bug to move to Toronto and pursue recording engineering and production, and I attended a school called the Harris Institute for the Arts. There I was able to kind of get a crash course in kind of how the industry worked. I was able to get a placement program. I believe that school is one of the few schools that's still in operation and killing it, by the way. John Harris is doing a wonderful job with the Harris Institute for the Arts in Toronto. But they have a placement program. I was able to get myself placed in a local recording studio back in the day when you could get a job at a studio. While there was no paying job at the time, I got a government grant, donated my time, and was doing live sound on the weekends for a wedding band. So, I think I've been to just over 200 Jewish weddings and bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, which was awesome. So I got placed at a studio called Arnyard Studios, worked with some incredible people like Michael Saraceni, who was the head engineer, Arnold Lanny, who was the owner of the studio, and a recording artist at the time, the band called Frozen Ghost. And I got to basically cut my teeth and grow up in the studio and for a couple of years, and just working with whoever kind of came through the door. One of those bands that came through the door was a band at the time called As If. It was kind of a 7-piece band doing a demo, trying to get discovered. A 5-piece. Anyway, so we cut a couple of demos, and that band changed their name to Our Lady Peace. I cornered Arnold one day to listen to this band that we were recording some demos with. Said, you got to check these guys out. Long story short, we went on to record the album Navid and Clumsy at that studio. I went on from that studio about 4 years later, after working with tons of wonderful talent, all kinds. It's a list. I'm not going to go through it right now. I moved to another studio called Sessions Recording Studios, where I started working with a singer named Jay Miller, who we started our own band, basically. Ended up, again, locking ourselves in the house and writing songs for 2 years. We just wrote every night. He worked some day job. I was in the studio, and we worked every night for about 2 years writing songs. And this is like 3 or 4 days a week after we worked a full day. And then we were fortunate enough to get a record deal with A&M Universal. It didn't last long. It lasted about a year. It was fun while it was lasted. A lot of great and humbling experiences in that. The band was called The Miller Stain Limit. It was a trippy name. The meaning of the name was the length of the legacy in which you choose to leave behind is up to you. And that was the J. Miller, The Miller Stain Limit. So from there, I ended up not long after that, a year later, getting dropped from that record deal. Had to go back into the studio, get a job again, kind of recording. And by this time, the analog tape world and the traditional recording studio consoles, the large format consoles, was starting to become a thing of the past, or a boutique industry. And now I had to learn a Mac computer and Pro Tools, and I didn't even know how to turn on a Mac computer. So that was a challenging transition, to say the least, and started working at a studio called Silver Birch Studios in Toronto for a gentleman named Andy Krem, who was incredible. And it was a time that was very challenging for me because I had just gone through, working with so many great artists in the studio. I am skipping over so many artists, but one thing I need to touch on was I was fortunate enough at around 25 years old, when I was still at Arnyard Studios, of getting a phone message on my answering machine from a young Alanis Morissette that a friend connected us to write songs. I was very fortunate to work with her for a couple of years. We had an incredible connection and wrote a few songs that were considered for the record. Jagged Little Pill, one was dropped maybe about a month before it was released. Another incredible, I can't even explain the experience, but what I learned in that experience with her, I had no idea how much it was going to play a role for the rest of my life and the rest of my career. More on that as we go. But back to the Pro Tools studio, we'll call it. I was kind of down on myself at this time because this was a 6-year period where I worked in that studio where, in my mind, I kind of framed it as failure, where I'd been, working with these incredible artists, gotten so close to, having massive success, and I had a major recording contract, and that all came crumbling down, and now I'm working on a computer with a mouse. Again, life has a funny way of working out, and I got the education of my life working with so many multicultural artists in the Toronto scene that this also changed my perspective on music. The amount of different genres, and not just that, but the people brought their food and their culture to it. So it was a normal day to record, Arabic music and Russian music and Central African music. And something about cultural music like this, when you don't understand the people, you don't understand their religion, you don't understand their culture, their food, it's almost kind of like a diss. Thank God I'm a nerd with all of those things, that I just kind of, dove deep on these cultures and learning more and more about the music. Something that really blew my mind one day when I was working with some of the many Rastafarian reggae artists that I worked with. One of the people in the band said, you'll never understand Rastafarian reggae music until you realize that we're part of the lost tribes of Israel and connected to the freeing of the slaves by Moses. And my mind just blew out of my skull. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was stuff like that that made me kind of start chasing down the origin of music, the history. What is this that I'm recording, and where did it come from, and why are there 12 notes between C and C sharp in the Arabic and Indian world? Why is there a focus on 4/4 timing instead of 6, and the relation to religion with that, and so many things, so many elements. And I hope to touch on all these topics through these podcasts and my book as well. But to say the least, I learned so much in that 6-year period of this place that I was so-called not happy in that environment. And then I got the bug to finally move to the United States and say, okay, I'm going to take on so-called epicenter of the music business. And I had Nashville on my sights. I had a buddy, Jim Morgan, is a very good friend of mine from Australia. We were roommates in Toronto actually back in the day, and he had a songwriting competition, shout out international songwriting competition, and unsigned only. And he says, I'm moving to Nashville and I got a couch for you anytime. So I was able to come down and visit him for a couple of years, doing many trips, just coming down, feeling it out. And then I brought an artist, Matt Dusk, and a good friend of mine. We've done, probably over 10 records together. I needed to look for songs, and we were cutting one song in Nashville, and then we were going to be doing the rest in Los Angeles at Capitol Studios with a 56-piece orchestra. So that was sort of my introduction to Nashville. We get to Nashville, and I get amazing open arms from so many incredible people. The late Ralph Murphy, a lot of the people you hear on the podcast here, Roger Cook, like so many amazing people took me under their wing. Kind of showed me the ropes. Nashville is that town where they really don't care where you're from, what you've done. They will welcome you, but you're going to have to earn your keep here. They don't care what success you had anywhere else. They see it as you're fresh in town and you've got to kind of earn your stripes. So, and I am kind of skipping over a lot as I'm giving you this background and the short, quick version of my story. Let's just say that I spent maybe 4 years learning the art of and craft of songwriting here, writing country music. The reason I came here was to kind of focus mainly on songwriting, because in Toronto, at least at the time, it was more of a boutique music industry. You kind of had to do a little bit of everything to make a living. At least that was the experience that I had. I just wanted to focus on songwriting. So that's why I came to Nashville initially. And it was a rough road. The first 4 years were, now understand, I'm 18 years into my music career at this point. So we're 4 more deep in Nashville. Long story short, I was fortunate enough to meet some incredible writers like Eric Paslay, Dylan Altman. We finally sat down after threatening to write a song together for a couple of years. One lucky day, in an hour and a half, the baby called Barefoot Blue Jean Night popped out. Eric was on a roll, as he always is, just spitting out words. You do your best to hang on when you're writing with great people like that. Dylan is an incredible writer. We just knew we created something special that day. We were kind of so broke from recording demos to pitch to artists. In Nashville at the time, you were using live bands, and it was probably maybe about $750 for a full band demo at the time. After recording so many songs to pitch them, it starts to really wear down your bank account. And I'm only in town for a 3-year visa. If I don't make something happen, I have to either renew my visa or head back to Canada. I was fortunate enough to renew the visa after 3 years, so I was in my 4th year. So we write this song. I'm going to skip ahead to something that actually is important for the Sold for a Song brand and the message that I'm doing. So I get to a really dark place at this point because I'm not seeing the movement or success that I'm hoping to see. And, we're getting back to that time where we're probably going to have to put our tail between our legs and head back to Canada and get a job at Starbucks until I can get back in the studio or make something happen. So it was an extremely challenging time. And I remember somebody from my hometown wanting to do an interview with me about my career. And I didn't even feel worthy of doing this interview, which was, just woe is me, feeling sorry for myself, the victim. And this is how this happens to all of us, especially in the arts. So I'm at a stage where this person wants to do an interview with me, and I don't even feel worthy of doing the interview. I finally just say, the heck with it, I'll do the interview. So we're on the phone doing this interview. On the other line is Eric Pasley trying to call me for some reason, and I'm on this interview. So I figure I'll call him later. So I get off the interview. I feel a lot better after it's done. It was nice to kind of reminisce and go over times where I was having success in my career. Again, this victim mentality, which is absolutely useless for us, but it's a natural thing. Get off the phone. Call Eric back up. Eric says, Jake Owen wants to record our song. I thought, no way. So he's actually going in the studio and recording it. So this is the first time I've got somebody actually recording one of my songs. I had tons of holds from Carrie Underwood, Rascal Flatts, Keith Urban, Faith Hill. Holds are just when somebody likes a song and they want to hold on to it to see if they might record it. And then in most cases, they don't record it. And if you're fortunate enough, they do. So this was one of those fortunate times where Jake was, apparently the record was done. He spent the money out of his own pocket to record the song. So Eric was calling me to tell me that the song was getting recorded. So I thought, wow, the irony of me going through this stage of victimhood where I don't even feel worthy to do an interview with somebody who wants to interview me about the success of my career. Meanwhile, somebody's trying to call me on the other line to tell me about an opportunity that's come through, and I'm not even feeling deserving of it, which is trash. So I'm going to back up to when Eric and I recorded the demo. Was in my little apartment in Cherry Creek Apartments in Hermitage, just outside of Nashville. Yeah, we're kind of broke. We got, just doing the best that we can. We're not going to be hiring a band to record this demo. So I have my laptop. I've got a little $100 microphone. I've got my $60 Altec computer speakers, and we're going to do a vocal acoustic guitar recording. Eric, initially, when we wrote that song that day, he had his high-strung guitar. It was actually his original, his first guitar he got as a kid, but he put some high strings on it in Nashville. It's just using the thinner high strings and rigging the whole guitar with them. It gives it a specific sound. So that became a real identity with that song. So we do this recording, and then his publisher is saying basically, people dig the song, but the demo's not really enough to get people excited with just vocal and guitar. Can you dress it up? So working with what I had, I thought, well, you know what? They've said no to every other song that I've written in the last 4 years. What are they going to do? Say no again? So I'm going to do what I would do to this song back home in Toronto, coming from the multicultural kind of no rules environment that I grew up in. Nashville is a lot more of a tight window. Country music traditionally is speaking to about 13 states. It's a specific type of how they write here. And I kind of came from a no rules kind of whatever works. So I thought, what are they going to say? No. So what I did was use Stylus RMX, and I wanted to create a drum beat in the chorus and this had nothing to do with being a hip hop beat, which is what it came off as in the end. But I wanted the beat to sonically and rhythmically be as hooky as the chorus was melodically and lyrically. So I wanted the drums to actually be its own hook. So I used this sample of a gospel church. It was a foot stomp and a hand clap from a gospel recording sample. And I used that. It was kind of the same beat as Jack and Diane. It had that kind of same rudiment, that and I just used these foot stomps and hand claps from this gospel church. And then in the verse, I thought, I'm going to just put an R&B because that felt a little bit urban, it came off that way, but it wasn't meant to be. I put a R&B beat with kind of finger snaps and 808 kind of sounds from Logic, Ultra Beat, I believe. And that became the new song, and that became the new demo. That's what got pitched to Jake. Joey Moy did an incredible version of the master recording. We had a good laugh because he had just got to town. He had never produced a country record. His words were, I just didn't want to fuck it up. And he ended up using the same stylus RMX and recreating that beat, adding a kind of a trill into the chorus. And then obviously the rest is history, the dobro and everything else they added, and did a wonderful job. So yeah, that song ended up changing our lives and Jake Owen's lives. And that was basically what got me my green card and let me stay in town. So that's kind of the backstory of that. The following years after that, I kind of stepped away from country music and I started writing a lot more music for film and TV, still using just kind of original songs, obviously, but stepping out, working with writers that weren't so much in the country vein. I was fortunate to have a lot of great placements in places like the Mad Max movie and all kinds of commercials and different movies and TV shows. So that was kind of fun for a while. And then we hit a hard spot. We had a divorce. We had some pretty dark times. I had to kind of fall back in love with music. It took me a few years to kind of bounce back. And when everything started coming to light, there was this, I don't know, just something hitting me saying it's time to give back. I didn't know what that meant. I just kind of kept working on myself. And I found out that when I'm working on myself, that often the reason I end up doing that is because I end up helping someone else with the same task. They say when you start serving others that you are most likely to serve the previous you. I said, well, I remember the previous me, so I'm going to do my best to kind of give back. I kind of like fighting for the underdog. The music creator world is basically an underdog. I started going down the road of the theme of sold for a song, kind of studied the history of it, and the term comes from, well, I followed it back and found it was Shakespeare that quoted it in All's Well That Ends Well. I know a man who sold a goodly manor for a song. Then I was able to chase it back a little bit further and found out that Queen Elizabeth I had Edmund Spenser perform a poem called The Fairy Queen. And her right arm, Lord Burleigh, was the Lord High Treasurer, was very unimpressed when the Queen said, pay this man for this performance. So it wasn't really a song. It was a poet who kind of performed his poem. And she said, pay this man. And it was a equivalent of like $30,000 today. And Lord Burleigh said, all this for a song? And that's as far back as I could chase it. And the definition literally is very cheaply, for little money, especially for less than something is worth. Here we are undervaluing the actual creation and the person creating it, but it's been for hundreds of years. So that's what started me on this path of like, is it really a royalty problem? We're not getting paid properly. We're not, like, the rates, the corruption. Is it, we keep kind of chasing our tails throughout the history of the music industry. And I'm thinking to myself, hang on a sec, this has been around since before any kind of music industry. It's just the way people look at creators in general and how they're valued. So there is a long history of creators being undervalued and being taken advantage of by people who do see the value of it. So my goal with all of this is to put the power and the value back into not just the hands, but the minds and the hearts of creatives, where they can leverage everything. They can own everything again. We're at a pivotal point here with AI. And if we don't do something about this now, this is going to get out of our hands in a way like it never has. And I don't know if we're ever going to get it back. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with a dire need for worth and value to be injected back into the creator, to see their worth and their value, to leverage it, then to streamline it, and then to sustain it. So with my upcoming book, I'm working on it. Don't worry, it's coming. And my Artist Accelerator course, this I'm shooting for early New Year, January, February, to release that. It's through these vehicles that I am going to go toe-to-toe with the music industry, fighting for the creators. And I'm not going to stop until I see the change that I want to see. I guess I'm at a stage where I'm not afraid to be wrong through my efforts. And, hey, what are they going to say? No? If today's episode lit a fire in you, don't let it fade. Subscribe to Sold for a Song, leave a review, and be the spark that helps others discover their own worth. And if you're ready to go deeper, my upcoming book and Artist Accelerator course are all waiting for you inside my private portal. Visit TerrenceSawchuk.com. Let's build this movement together.